Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning and something is wrong. No buildings, no roads, no sound of traffic in the distance. Just trees, grass, and silence. You've just landed 50,000 years in the past, alone in the Stone Age. And within the first hour, you'll realize something terrifying. You have no idea how to survive. Not because you're weak, because everything you know is useless. Let's go through exactly what would happen, hour by hour, problem by problem. Problem 1, fire. You know, fire is important. Everyone does. But do you know how to make it? Not with a lighter. Not with matches. With sticks, stone, and friction. Studies on modern volunteers attempting the hand drill method, the same technique used for tens of thousands of years, show something brutal. Most people fail completely on their first attempt. It can take over 20 minutes of continuous, exhausting friction to produce a single ember. And that's if your wood is dry enough and you know the exact angle and pressure. Get it wrong, and you get nothing but blisters and a cold night ahead. And a cold night isn't just uncomfortable. Without fire, you have no protection from predators, no way to purify water, no way to cook food that your gut can no longer digest raw. Your ancestors solved this problem once, 1,000,000 years ago, and never had to solve it again because the knowledge was passed down. You skipped every single one of those lessons. Problem 2, water. You're thirsty within hours, and here's what almost nobody realizes. Not all water is safe, even if it looks clean. Stagnant ponds, slow-moving streams, anything downstream of animal activity can carry parasites and bacteria that your modern gut has zero resistance to. Hunter-gatherers knew which water sources were safe through generations of passed-down knowledge, moving water over rocks, springs from certain types of ground, specific plants that only grow near drinkable sources. You know none of this, so you're left with an impossible choice. Drink and risk a parasite that could kill you in a world with no medicine, or don't drink, and dehydration will kill you in 3 days anyway. Problem 3, food. You're not just hungry, you're facing a skill gap that took children years to close. In hunter-gatherer societies, anthropologists have found that foraging skill, knowing which plants are edible, which lookalikes are poisonous, where roots and tubers hide underground, isn't fully mastered until a person's late teens or 20s. It takes that long to learn safely. You don't have 20 years. You have a stomach that's already cramping. And hunting is worse. Modern humans, even ones who exercise regularly, dramatically overestimate their physical capability compared to someone raised chasing game since childhood. Persistence hunting, the method our ancestors likely relied on most, chasing an animal for hours until it collapses from heat exhaustion, requires endurance, tracking skill, and knowledge of animal behavior that simply cannot be downloaded. You'd starve long before you figured any of this out on your own. Problem 4, predators. Here's something people rarely consider. For most of human history, we weren't the top of the food chain. We were prey. Large cats, wolves, and other predators actively hunted early humans, especially at night when human eyesight is close to useless. Without fire, without a group, and without a defensible shelter, a lone modern human at night is one of the easiest meals in the ecosystem. Our ancestors survived this specific threat through numbers and vigilance, sleeping in groups, taking turns on watch, staying close to fire. You'd be doing none of that. You'd be alone. Problem 5, injury. This is the one almost nobody thinks about until it's too late. In the modern world, a small cut is nothing. Wash it. Maybe put a bandage on it. Move on with your day. 50,000 years ago, that same cut could kill you. No antiseptic, no antibiotics, no stitches. A minor wound that gets infected can turn fatal within a week, and there was no way to stop it once it started spreading. Historians studying pre-modern populations have consistently found that infection, not violence, not starvation, was one of the single biggest killers of early humans. A twisted ankle while you're alone and can't build a fire or find water isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence, slow and quiet. Problem 6, isolation. This one isn't physical, and it might be the most dangerous of all. Humans did not survive as individuals. We survived as groups. Every single skill we've talked about, fire making, foraging, hunting, water sourcing, wound care, was passed down and practiced communally. A lone human, cut off from any tribe, wasn't just physically vulnerable. Psychologically, prolonged isolation combined with constant, unrelenting survival stress is known to deteriorate decision-making within days, the exact moment you need clear thinking the most. You wouldn't just be fighting the environment. You'd be fighting your own mind, alone, with no one to talk to, no one to share the load with, and no idea how many days you'd been out there. Problem 7. Language. Let's say, somehow, you survive long enough to spot another group of humans in the distance. Your first instinct is relief. Finally, people who can help. But here's what almost nobody thinks about until it's too late. You cannot speak to them. Not a single word. 50,000 years ago, there was no one human language. Groups separated by even a few hundred kilometers could have completely unrelated ways of speaking, sounds, rhythms, and gestures that meant nothing to an outsider. Researchers studying isolated hunter-gatherer bands today have found that even neighboring groups can be almost entirely unintelligible to each other. So when you walk toward this group, you're not just a stranger. You're something they've never had a category for. No shared words, no shared gestures, no way to explain who you are or that you mean no harm. In a world with no law, no ID, no way to verify intent, strangers were treated as threats first and people second. Historical accounts of first contact between isolated groups, even in recent centuries, show the same pattern again and again. Confusion, fear, sometimes violence, all because neither side could explain itself. You could be standing in front of people who might save your life and instead be driven off, simply because you couldn't say a single word they understood. And even if they let you stay, learning a full language from nothing, with no shared reference point, no translator, nothing written down, could take months of trial and error. Months where you'd be fed, sheltered, and tolerated purely on faith, assuming that faith was ever extended to you at all. So let's add it all up. No fire on demand. No safe water without years of local knowledge. No food without decades of foraging and hunting expertise. No protection from predators without a group and a flame. No cure for the smallest injury. No words to explain yourself to the one group that could save you. And no one beside you to help carry any of it. Everything that keeps you alive right now, the switch on your wall, the tap in your kitchen, the pharmacy down the street, the language you're hearing right now, isn't just convenience. It's the accumulated survival knowledge of 300,000 years, handed down, refined, and finally handed to you, fully built, without you ever having to earn a single piece of it. Our Stone Age ancestors weren't primitive. They were experts in fire, in water, in plants, in animals, in language, in each other, at a level modern humans can barely imagine. And if you were dropped into their world, empty-handed, with none of that knowledge, you wouldn't last a week. They wouldn't have lasted a week in ours either. Not because they were less capable, because the world would owe them nothing either. Survival was never about strength. It was always about knowledge, passed from one generation to the next, one fire, one word, at a time.